again everyone, it's me, Madame Macabre, and welcome to a new video. As you can see, this is a very different setup than my regular stuff. Well, for quite a long time now, actually, I've been getting tons of requests from people to do like a get ready with me or makeup tutorial type thing for how I do my own stuff. Like, I won't lie, I have no real training or anything. I'm not even that good at makeup, but I figured it might be a fun little deviation away from some other stuff to do one of these get ready with me videos. But I mean, if you're looking for a tutorial with like the best quality makeup and people who actually really know what they're doing, you know, I'd recommend going to see like a beauty guru or a makeup artist, someone who actually, you know, knows what they're doing. But if you're like a chill person who wants to work with like a middle of the road budget, like decent products but won't break the bank and, you know, just trying your best, not really knowing if you're doing everything right, then this might be for you. Anyway, I think today I am sort of feeling like a Morticia Addams type look. I mean, obviously, looking at my bone structure and my brows, we ain't gonna be exactly like Morticia, but we can get some inspiration from Spooky Mama. Alright, well first and foremost, I better get these things off. Can't exactly apply makeup with that. So, starting out, I generally start off with a primer. What I am using right now, it's a Because Cosmetics Mattifying Sheer Primer. If you prefer spray-on primer or have any other kind of thing you like better, go ahead and use that. I have this because it was gifted to me on my birthday, so a lot of the nicer stuff I have was gifted to me, so everything that's not as nice quality, it's because I just didn't want to spend $50 on makeup myself, so let's go! Okay, so there's not a whole lot of method to my madness. I just kind of do what feels right. So mainly I start putting the primer in the areas where I feel like they need it the most. So like under my eyes and on the bridge of my nose. I noticed that my nose, like foundation in the past, it would rub off, it would like lift. So I found using better primer and better foundation quality keeps it in there. So you put it in those areas that you need it, and then you go ahead and rub it in. And for those of you who are new at makeup, primer is really important to help the makeup actually stick to your face. So if you've noticed it coming off partway through the day, primer will actually help fix that and makes the makeup look better. And don't forget to also do under your neck and your chin. Alright, after primer, I generally move on to concealer. I'm just using a drugstore brand. I think this is Maybelline's Master Concealer by Face Studio. Since I have the complexion of a blind cavefish, I just use the lightest color in Fair, I believe. Just pick the color that works for you. Obviously, it's not going to be the same for everyone. Okay, so the thing with concealer is it's really there to help you hide some of the things you don't really want to be seen. So I put it where I normally get dark circles because, I'll be honest, I don't always get as much sleep as I should. And you can also use it to cover any blemishes or red spots you have. That's what it's for, so go ahead and fill those in. And I got an itty bitty little beauty blender. I like to use that to apply the concealer. You can use whatever you like. I just really like using this little thing. And when you're using a beauty blender, you don't want to wipe it. You go ahead and bounce it on into your skin. Though I would recommend being gentle with the skin under your eyes. Don't want to give yourself premature bags. Be gentle in that area. I mean, except for the blemishes. When you get down to those blemishes, you can go ahead and beat those suckers into submission. Face my wrath, zit. Alright, now that we're done with the concealer, I like to move on to foundation. Personally, this is one of the more expensive ones I buy myself. I will move on to the actual foundation. And I personally use Too Faced's Born This Way. And once again, with my insanely pale complexion, I use Snow. I know they just released another even paler one called Swan, but I think that one's too much of a yellow undertone for me. So, go ahead and use whatever kind you use. And I usually use a beauty blender to apply mine. I know some people use brushes. Just use whatever you prefer. I got nothing. Okay, so just like with the concealer, once again, you want to be bouncing it into your skin. You can go ahead and pay special mind to any blemishes you might have or any areas with like red spots and stuff. Do not forget, once again, to get under your chin and your neck, otherwise you will be wearing a makeup mask, and people do notice that, and that's like a big problem for starting makeup 101. That's like high school back in the 90s issue. So I'm going ahead and getting both sides under my chin, evening it out, and as you'll notice, I am skipping the under eye area because I already got concealer down there. I've noticed that if I put too much foundation in the under eye area, it really wants to collect in the natural eye bags and stuff down there, and it just looks terrible. So I tend to avoid that. So we're going to go ahead and just finish applying this all over our face, and then we can move on to the next thing. I will make a special note, however, for the nose. I always like to pay special care to doing my nose because that's the area I have the most problem with the foundation lifting. And I don't know if you've noticed when sometimes your nose, like you'll see the skin underneath the foundation a part way through the day, and we're trying to avoid that. So I've learned to not pile a ton of product on, because I find the more product I put on, the more likely it's to do that. However, when I switched to a higher quality foundation, it stopped doing that as much, but I'm also still careful not to like overload the nose. Okay, now that we have our foundation and concealer on there, it's time to set it into place. And I personally am using Hard Candy's Translucent Loose Powder. I have personally found that I prefer using the translucent powder because whenever I use the kind with any pigment in it, it ends up making either the foundation start to clump and lift, or it makes me look darker because I have yet to find a colored powder that is light enough for me. So I think needing to literally use translucent is a hint at my color. So let's move on. As far as setting goes, I personally like to use a big fluffy kabuki brush, but I know other people like to use like powder puffs and things like this. Once again, you can use whatever your preference is, just make sure you load it up with powder and set it in, that way it lasts all day and doesn't just like get to be a sweaty, gross mess, because we're going into summer, let's be honest, we don't want to sweat it all off. Okay, so setting powder is pretty straightforward. You just load up your brush and tap off the excess powder before going ahead and applying it all over your face. Also, you want to remember, once again, under the chin and on the neck, because you really don't want that to be the only part of your face that starts melting off. Also, once again, pay close mind to under the eye. You're going to want to avoid powdering there for now. It's a little trick I've learned for not having stuff collect in those little delicate bags and wrinkles in that area. Also, pay close mind to the nose, as you see there. Once again, I've found that when I over powder the nose or I put colored powder on the nose, it really accelerates the lifting. But if you can get the right amount on there, and especially translucent powder in particular, even if you can use pigmented powder, translucent powder really prevents the nose from lifting from what I've found. And I've got a nice little loose brush here that I use to help kind of dust off any excess powder until I feel confident that we're nice and set in. And inevitably, we're gonna get a little bit of powder in there and stuff may start to cake up by now, so go back to that little beauty blender and start smoothing it out again and clearing it all out. That way, we're going to maintain the smoothness up until we finally do set the powder in this area, which I usually hold off for like 15 to 20 minutes so it has time to settle. Okay, so for those of you who like to do a little bit of contouring, this next step I'll generally use a little bit of a bronzer. I've got a Physicians Formula bronzer booster. I'm sure there's tons of better ones out there, but I tend to not do a ton of contouring because it takes more time, and generally I don't like going out with that intense of makeup. But I will generally do a little bit of contouring in the cheekbones to add a little more depth there. So if this is what you like to do, you can use whatever your preferred bronzer is and just get a good little brush and dive right into it. So when I do bronzer, I like to be pretty subtle with it. I'll be light-handed and I like to follow the natural curve from my cheekbone. So I'll usually start by my ear and pull it in towards the corner of my mouth. And I like to sort of blend a little bit as I go, being very light-handed, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And even now, just being light, it's still too dark for my taste, so once I put that bronzer in there, I will actually get a clean, light, loose brush, and I will begin blending it in further so it becomes even more subtle. I mean, you may personally not want it as blended in if you want it to stick out more, but the name of the game for me is to make it look natural, just a little bit of dimension to the face. So moving on, once we've done the little bit of contouring stuff here, I like to go on and add in my blush. And once again, Mama don't like to spend too much money on things that can be helped. And here in this house, we like e.l.f. because e.l.f. they provide decent products and they don't break the bank. So we're gonna use e.l.f.'s blush palette in light. Once again, you can use whatever palette fits your skin tone and complexion. I just use light because, once again, cave goblin. Alright, so we also want to use, I use like an angled blush brush. So I'm just gonna dip in, and I usually follow closely along to where I did the contouring and just kind of use that as a guide to get right in there. It took me the longest time when I was younger to learn how to do the blush and stuff, because my mom never really did makeup except for like church events and stuff, and then she did really simple stuff like just a little bit of eyeshadow and mascara, so I never really learned how to do this until, you know, getting older, and let me tell you, some younger school years were rough. But I think I'm pulling it together. Anyways, let's jump in. So once again, the name of the game is soft, gentle, bouncy movements. Now you may notice that because I am so dang pale, I pick up a lot of pigment quite quickly. You might not pick it up as fast depending on your skin tone, but just be aware if you are pale, you will pick it up fast. So you are going to need to do some blending down because, bless you, I will not be leaving it like this. It is too intense. We are going to once again get that loose little brush and start blending away until it is no longer insanity. So let's just take care of that real quick. I ain't looking to look like an 80-year-old getting ready to go out to bingo. Okay, so now we are bronzed and blushed. Now let's move on to highlighting. Now, once again, highlighting will be something that you pick your highlight based on your complexion and all that. Me personally, once again, the blind cavefish, I can get away with using things that normally might be more theatrical for other people. I personally like this hard candy prismatic highlighter that is in iridescent pearl. And the fact that that works like a normal highlighter for me, I mean, we get it, I'm pale, okay? So I like to use a nice little highlighter brush and dive right in. So when I highlight, I like to put a lot of focus on the cheekbones because we want to signal for the aliens to take us away, baby. And then when we're done with the cheekbones, I like to focus on the bridge of the nose, narrow that out a little bit. And then I will also get some on my forehead in the middle right there. And then the last place I touch up is the point of my chin. Now, it's a little bit too intense as it is right now, so we will go back to our handy-dandy little loose brush and get any excess powder that may be resting on our face and sort of just blend that in, and we will pretty much be good. Okay, now that we got that all dealt with, once again, we're going to move in on this under eye area because some of the powder will have undoubtedly caught in there, and it's probably sat long enough that I can actually powder it now. So you're just going to want to make sure that you are getting it all smoothed out and there's none of that nonsense in there. And then we'll move on to the powder itself. So once again, rinse and repeat with that gentle bouncing motion. We're trying to clear out any more product that may have settled into the bags underneath your eyes. If you have trouble getting some stuff, I found that you can also use your fingers to very gently pull some of the skin back, and then you can once again bounce it and work it in. Once again, we're using another e.l.f. product this time. This is their under eye setting powder, and I use it in Surprise Sheer. Alright. So I like to use a small but loose and fluffy little brush that I load up with the powder and go ahead and start tapping into the skin there, going ahead and making sure that the product is getting set just like everywhere else on your face. However, it should have had enough time now with you doing those little tricks with continually patting the foundation or concealer in that hopefully now you shouldn't get any of that nasty caking that builds up underneath your eye throughout the day, and it should be nice and smooth. moving along, we have one of the parts that ends up inevitably taking me some of the longest amount of time in my get ready process, and that would be doing the brows. And as you can see, I clearly have thick brows naturally, so it doesn't take nearly as much work as having to like draw them all on from scratch, but unfortunately they're not exactly as on point as I want them to be as they are now, so I like to fill them in a little bit and shape them. So for that I use another e.l.f. product, their brow pomade. Espresso is the color of this one. Unless your hair is like really dark, you'll probably want to go with a lighter shade than that, but since my hair is black, going with a dark brown I find works with me.
So the very first thing I do with my brows is use one of these little brushes to start taming them. I like to make sure all the hairs are going in the right direction, not doing anything wild. It just makes my life a whole lot easier when it comes time to start applying the pomade. Once we're done with that, we are going to go ahead and start dipping into the pot of color, and I like to start somewhere in the middle of my brow, and I use a small angled brush and I do light strokes, trying not to be too heavy-handed because let me tell you, it's real easy to go way too dark, way too fast, and it's much easier to add more pigment than it is to have to try and take it away. So naturally I will follow the natural curve of my eyebrow and just sort of fill in the shape that we've got going on here. I do a lot of work in plucking, in maintaining the shape, so it's already in the shape I like. It will be a different process for you if you don't already have your natural brows how you want them, or if you don't have them at all and you need to paint them on from absolute scratch. As you can see here, I'm going much lighter in the inner part of my brow so I can have a bit of an ombre. So I tend to do darkest on the out portion of the eyebrow and then go far lighter on the inside. And when I'm done with that, I will go back to that little brush and I will start to comb it a little bit in order to make it even lighter and a more natural gradient into the darker part of the brow. And everything I have done on this brow that I'm happy with, I will then move on and go do the exact same thing on the other brow.
Okay, as you can see, we got the brows done. Now the next thing I like to move on to is the eyes then. So for today, since I'm going for a more Morticia look, I am going to be using some smokier colors, and I'm going to be using the Carity Frost palette. I'm pretty happy with them. You get this whole palette. It was like around 25 bucks, I think. But we're mostly going to be hitting these grays and blacks over here for today. So let's go ahead and dive in.
So for the lid itself, we're going to use that nice, soft, smoky silver color. I like to do a light color for the lid itself, especially for this particular look, when we're going to go more intense and dark just above it. We'll go ahead and do both lids with this nice color and then move on to the next step. Once we're done there, we're going to use a much lighter, almost white, creamy color that we're going to frost just under the brow on the brow bone. Fill that in. I like to make that area the absolute lightest. So once again, we're going to do that on both sides, getting it nice and light in there. Once again, preparing for the intense drama that is about to approach. That's right, we are now moving on to this bad boy, the middle darker gray color, not quite black yet, and we're going to use a more angled skinny brush and follow the crease of our eye with that darker color, starting to build up to that spooky Morticia look. Now, I will eventually be adding black in, but I like to lay out the colors and start blending with this middle color. That way it's not too intense too quickly. But as you can see, once again, following that crease in there, kind of blending it in, working with the shape of your eye, and this might be a slightly different process depending on the shape of your eyelid, but in general, it should be pretty straightforward. Just follow the curve of your eye, and then wing it on out, baby. Wing it on out. So as the color starts to get a little more intense, you're going to want to get a nice clean loose brush to begin blending away and softening it and making sure everything's sort of gradienting into each other, very nice and smooth, while also maintaining that dramatic element you want to see. When we're done smoothing everything out, we're gonna dip into the black now, and everything that we laid out in that gray, we can begin to start adding in some black. Do it at your discretion. You don't want to get too intense too quickly once again, and you don't want to like oversaturate with black everywhere and lose the shape of that classic Morticia swoop. So at your discretion, begin following the crease once more and highlighting with that black certain areas you want to seem sharper and pointier. And once we're done there, go ahead and go back to that blending brush. That way we can smooth between the brow bone and the drama below. And me oh my, it looks like we are done, so let's do the other one now.
Okay, now that we're done applying the eyeshadow to both sides, we're gonna move on to eyeliner. I'm going to be using today e.l.f.'s liquid eyeliner in jet black. If you prefer the pot of eyeliner with a brush, you can do that too, however you work best. But for this look, because it's already a crazy dramatic eyeshadow, we're going to stick with the dramatic theme and we're going to do some wings.
Listen man, when it comes to eyeliner, I don't really know what to tell you how to do it better, because I can barely do it myself. So do whatever you got to do to get those lines straight. Just follow the curve of your eye and make a wing big and sharp enough to slay somebody's heart. Okay, once we're done with the wing, we're gonna move on in towards the inner eye. Now for the drama in this look, we're also going to want to line that inside corner of our eye, which gives it kind of a wolfish look and adds to the overall drama. So once you're done taking care of that, we're going to move to underneath the waterline, not touching the waterline yet, oh god no, not with liquid eyeliner, but we're going to follow the bottom curve of our eye.
Alright, now that we've finished harnessing whatever unearthly forces we required to get that eyeliner on straight, we're going to move on to the waterline. So I am just going to use a normal eyeliner pencil to fill it on in, just like your edgy high school days, because we never grow out of that, do we? Alright kiddos, we're just about there. The next step that I do after all this is I apply mascara. I'm just using, once again, a drugstore brand, the Maybelline Rocket Volume Express. I found it works really good for my eyelash type. I'm sure different things will work better for different people, but I like this. So we'll go ahead and put it on now.
So I have always had really long lashes that naturally curl, so because of that, I've never really felt the need to use falsies unless I'm going for like crazy cosplay stuff, and I also don't often need to use a curler, so there may be some steps in between that you yourself may want to follow that I am not doing here. Do what you gotta do for your own lash type, but for me, we're just gonna go ahead and fill in with that good old mascara.
And congratulations, we've gone ahead and finished the majority of the face and the eyes. Now, last we need to move on to the lips. And if we're truly gonna go for a Morticia Addams inspired look, we're gonna want a nice dark bloody red. But before we do that, make sure you get your lips moisturized and scrub down if you need to. I'm gonna go ahead and prepare using a primer and plumper just for that extra bam.
I don't know what to tell you guys. It's pretty much the same thing as putting on chapstick. Next!
So, the next thing we're going to do after getting your lips prepped is we're going to line and fill them. So I personally am going to be using a NYX lip liner pen in the color Currant. It's a nice dark rich red. So let's get on that.
Now I know overlining your lips is kind of a trend right now, but I ain't really into that, so I am just going to be following my natural lip shape and getting it nice and outlined, carefully following the lines so the whole look will be much cleaner. I have personally found that by lining and filling my lips, it helps the lipstick itself stick and stay way longer with way less touch-ups in between the day. So while it's not, I guess, entirely necessary to line and fill your lips, depending on what lipstick you are using, it would still be my recommendation if you want it to last through hell and high water of any kind of day.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do after lining and filling our lips is moving on to the actual lipstick itself. Today I'm going to be using a liquid lipstick velour by Jeffree Star in the color Unicorn Blood. I find that this color is like perfect for like a dark, rich red, and I use it all the time, and it lasts like all day and never comes off.
So once again, we are going to be following the natural shape of our lip. I try to use as little product as possible while doing so, because I have found that with these liquid lipsticks, especially the mattes, which can be a little bit drying, the more the product you put on your lips in layers, the more it kind of dries them out and starts to find the little cracks in your lips and stuff. So if we can do it in a few fell swoops, that will be ideal. And now when we move on to the top lip, once again, I prefer just to stick to following the shape of my own natural lips, but you can have a lot of fun working with the shape of your Cupid's bow or anything like that when you work in the top. So be creative as you want, or like me, you can just stick to your natural lip. However, it also can be kind of a more difficult part. I've found when I do mess up, the top lip is usually gonna be where I do it. So try to keep as steady a hand as possible, and good luck, soldier, I know you can do it.
Alright, and there we have the lips. And that leaves us just with one final step, and that is locking all this work in with a good setting spray. I'm going to be using Hard Candy's Long Wear Sheer Envy setting spray. And let's get ready to make ourselves joke, huh? Yep. Gotta love that. Alright, after you give that a moment to dry, we should be good. Now, I realize my lighting, once again, is not the best in here, so let's move out now where there's better lighting so you go ahead and get a better look at the finished product. Alright, now we've got some natural light on, and here we have the finished look. Pretty dramatic, so it's definitely not going to be for everybody, but I am quite dramatic myself, and I like heavier looks because I wear glasses and I want it to still look like I'm doing something fun when I put them on. So there you have it, the classic Madame Macabre, and today's look leaning more towards a Morticia inspiration. Anyway, I hope this was a helpful, fun little video for you guys. Sorry for those of you who are not into makeup and this isn't your thing. Don't worry, this is not going to be my new regular thing. It is just something that people have been asking me for literal years now to do. So I figured, alright, you know, what can it hurt to do one little get ready with me thing. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if not, I'll have something else for you next time. And you guys can definitely look forward to more from those darn clowns at the Dusklit Carnival later on. So I'll catch you then too. Anyway, that's all I have time for today. I actually have to go run errands now that I am presentable for the general public. So I will catch you all later. And until then, stay creepy.